What's up, Steelers fans? Welcome in for another week talking about a Steelers victory. And this is one of the sweeter victories. It's because it's over the hated Dirty Birds. I don't know where they're pulling these wins. They seem to be taking them out of their rear end, but this one seemed like one that Baltimore gave away more than the Steelers won this one. Mistakes, be they penalties, fumbles, putting the ball in the air with 30 seconds left to go in the first half inside your own 10-yard line when you could have just clocked the half there. Um, Unforced errors put the Steelers in a position to win this game, and we did barely by the skin of our teeth and by Chris Boswell's right foot. A couple Steelers returned today from injury. Nick Herbig, second play of the game, that forced fumble recovered by Deshaun Elliott. Nice to see a couple Steelers today having not homecoming parties, because what's it called when your old home comes to your new home? I don't know if there's a name for that, but Patrick Queen and Deshaun Elliott, both former Ravens, both had very good days against their former employees today. You love to see that. Ben Skoranek, another guy returning from injury, maybe not necessarily a household name among Steelers fans, but a key contributor on special teams. He's one of the starting gunners on the punt chase unit, alongside James Pierre. Skoranek, you also saw him motion into the backfield as an offensive player today to be a fullback, a lead blocker for, I believe, Najee Harris there early in that game. And it's a rare guy who has the skill sets, both the speed to be a gunner to chase down punts, and also the base and the power to move people as a lead blocker out of the backfield as a fullback. So key contributor on special teams, Ben Skoranek, returned today. Special teams was a huge factor in this game. Obviously, another 6 field goal game for Chris Boswell. Um, Justin Tucker on the other end of it missed two 50-yard field goals, a 47-yarder and a 50-yarder. Case of the yips for Justin Tucker. I think it's safe to say that Chris Boswell now sits on the throne of the best AFC kicker. And don't give me that Harrison Butker nonsense, that misogynistic asshole. In the back of your mind, you know that a lot of those football players probably have some skewed political views because of their unnatural wealth and the short window that they have to make that money. They're going to want to hold on to as much of it as possible. But, I'd prefer they just keep it to themselves. But we're here to talk about the Steelers, so let's talk about the halfback screens are finally coming alive for the Steelers. That's something they haven't been able to run effectively for a number of years now. They hit a nice one to Najee, similar to the one they hit last week, and they also had one to Jalen in the second half, although that one was probably more him just, weaving his way through traffic and making things, creating on his own. That one wasn't necessarily blocked up as well as the runway that Najee had on the earlier one. As far as the running game, I think the zone runs were working. The gap schemes, not so much. On that early fourth down attempt, you saw the exact same play they ran on the goal line that they got a touchdown out of last week, and then they ran again on a 4th-down-and-1 attempt. They converted last week, but this week the Ravens were all over it, shut it down. It was the exact same play. So for those, it's the same plays, people, there's some red meat for you. But overall, I don't think the running game, it's a tall task running against that Ravens defense. They noted a number of times it's the number one defense against the run in the NFL, although they're the last against the pass. So you'd think you'd be able to have more success in the air against them today. So that was a little bit anomalous, but on the offensive side of the ball for the Ravens, they were tops in most categories. So to hold them to only 16 points, that's a that's a great performance for your defense. On the offensive side of the ball, I see how there was, meat left on the bone. After the third sack, I believe, I could hear boos in Acrisure. But I don't know where you think he should have gone with that ball because they had it locked up pretty well. It was a single high man coverage, and they also had a robber underneath. They had Roquan Smith to take away anything crossing. The big story of the day for the Steelers team has to be Patrick Queen, with his old team in town, his old employers watching from the executive boxes. He had a couple key plays. Would have had more. There was one that was wiped off the board in the second half there. But late in the first half, like I said, within 30 seconds there, Ravens with the ball inside their own 10. Instead of just clocking and going to the locker room, they decided to try to do something with it. and Patrick Queen makes them pay. He strips that ball out, and a nice hustle play to after the strip to actually fall on top of it. So he forced the fumble and also recovered it there. Great hustle play from Queen. He was playing with his hair on fire. You can see why. I think he's been very vocal about his feelings regarding the Ravens, how he thought he deserved another contract that they didn't feel he deserved because they had Roquan Smith in their back pocket. They were more than ready to let him walk. And considering the production of those guys, I highlighted this last week, they're going kind of the opposite ways. Roquan Smith trending downwards, Patrick Queen ever on the climb. It seems like the Ravens made the wrong decision, and the Steelers are more than willing to benefit from that. As far as the star of this defense goes, though, TJ Watt, he was largely quiet today. I think the Ravens did a pretty good job controlling him, planning for him, and most teams usually do. It's just a matter of how much they can stick to their plan and how you can get them. If you can get their offense off script and off schedule, they'll have no choice but to resort back to the deep drops. He did have that emphatic tackle for loss on Derrick Henry early in the second half, and he would have had another half sack along with Loudermilk, but that was taken off the board by a holding penalty. I think that was Queen on the holding. For the most part, they did a good job on TJ. For the most part, the Steelers defense did a good job on Lamar Jackson, who's having another MVP caliber year. Containing him. It wasn't their usual game plan of just the mess charge all game. Just hit Lamar every play no matter what. Completely one-dimensionalize the read option game. Force him to hit the ball off every play, because if he doesn't, he's going to be punished for it. They got away from that, the Steelers did, a little bit in this game. And Lamar made him pay for it, and they had to get back to it a little bit. Pickens was largely contained. He had some small contributions here and there until the deep ball early in the second half. I love that one. It was a nice double move from George off the line to shake his guy, get a little bit of separation. Pass dropped perfectly in the bucket, and George flashed in the late hands, as Charles pointed out in the broadcast, looking like Deontay Johnson there. That's something that he used to do so well, is hide his hands, not give the defense anything to attack, no clues about when that ball's coming in. If you don't get when that ball's going to show up, and you're just going like, and then whoops. That's what they were praising George for on that play, the late hands. The Russell Wilson interception in the end zone, I put that one on Mount Washington. He's got to do a better job of boxing out in that situation. Russell Wilson threw that to a place where the defender should not have been able to get there if Washington was reacting to it properly, but there was no adjustment to the ball. There were a couple scary moments today with Joey Porter. Went down for a while, came back, and then a few plays later was limping pretty emphatically off the field. And Keanu Benton also went down at some point. I'm not sure if he came back. I'll have to look at the injury report for that. And then a big hit on Najee on a run that he had, hit somewhere in the thigh, the hip area, but it looked like there was some knee bending. And you never know about, ligaments in those situations. But he was right back up, right back out there the next play in pass protection. That man is so resilient. You can't say enough about his Iron Man ness. The man's made of liquid metal. The things that he's able to withstand on a football field are insane. The Payton Wilson interception looked eerily similar to a Devin Bush interception from his rookie year against the Ravens. Just tracking it over his head with his back to the ball, just playing the hands of the receiver, letting him do what he's going to do, and then attacking the ball and coming down with it. It was almost the exact same play, except towards the sideline instead of the middle of the field. I hope that this isn't a bad omen, that something terrible is going to happen to him injury-wise, and he's never the same afterwards. So hopefully the trajectory of their careers don't end up in the same place. But we've seen that exact same interception before, and it's highly skilled play. It's insane that Devin Bush didn't amount to anything after doing a play like that. But Wilson, give him all the credit in the world for that. Great to see that from a sideline to sideline guy, to also have the ball skills that make you a complete player and not just a run and chase guy, not just a thumper, not just a gap filler. Late in this game, they made our hearts pump again on that touchdown that I think was a push off from the offensive receiver. But on the 2 point try there, it was smart by Tomlin to call that timeout, call it late after to give you a hint of what the play they had called there. And it was going to be a quarterback keeper, a quarterback draw run. They were just going to let Lamar try to weave his way through traffic into the end zone there. The play they ended up running after the timeout was very similar. I think he was looking for a receiver after it was bottled up. The rush was, but he never ended up finding one. Had to just throw that one up, Hail Mary style. One of the weirder passes you're ever going to see from an NFL quarterback, but incomplete there. 18-16 at that point. The Ravens make the decision to kick it deep and rely on their defense, which was a bet that had been paying off for them thus far in that game. Allowing 0 points to the Steelers offense, all of the points coming off Chris Boswell's right toe there. I liked the Fields package that they ran out in this game. They had talked about it this past week about that being something available to them, and it had just never the opportunity had never come up. I'd been worried about taking Wilson off the field. Why would you take a hot arm off the field for cold legs? But when it's not working for Wilson, when his arm does go cold, you can try to cook up a little jambalaya with the legs. I think that's a Madden 04 term for you old heads. Deep cut there. But the legs from Fields did provide a spark to the Steelers offense. The chutzpah to go back to it late, I thought was very impressive. On that second down play, he could have had the first down had he taken on that tackler. And we've seen Fields aggressively attack tacklers there and not just give himself up. So it's strange. You'd think he'd have more to prove and he'd have be more hungry now, more willing to take risks than when he was the starter. But he slid just a little bit short. And then on the third down, actually, it probably ended up working in their favor because they got an extra timeout out of the Ravens. And then on the third down play, when the chips were really down, they finally got some push from the boys up front. And Najee just converted just barely on that run. And then you move the chains. They're out of timeouts, 50 seconds to go. It's time for victory formation, baby. I think I would have liked to see Justin take a snap in victory formation. Give Russell one, give Justin one, just for the symbolism of it. But a Steelers win's a Steelers win. I'm not going to quibble about symbolic stuff. Just to close it out here, I want to get on my soapbox for a minute. Even though the Steelers team has had success against the Ravens in the last, I don't know, half decade or so, pretty unanimous success, actually. I would not let that hubris get the better of you, Steelers fans. A lot of these wins have been kind of fluky situations, with more of the Ravens having a clearly superior team. Give it away, give it away, give it away now. With mistakes. And a lot of these games, Lamar Jackson hasn't played in this rivalry, especially the games in the later half. In the second installment is usually towards the end of the year when the Ravens already have their playoff spot locked up and don't have anything to play for. So we haven't seen the best of the Ravens. We haven't seen the cleanest version of them. I would urge Steelers fans to just continue to treat them with a healthy respect because they are a very talented team. I think the difference between these two teams right now is just coaching. Mike Tomlin, obviously, his record in one score games speaks for itself. And I think what that says is he has his guys poised and prepared in the keyest moments of games. When the spotlight is biggest, they don't blink, and that's what he means when he threatens to cut off rookies' eyelids. Is he doesn't want you to blink when the lights are the brightest. Great win for the Steelers today. Great building blocks, especially as we continue to stack wins against quality teams. It's going to be harder and harder to say that we're just a defensive darling, that we've just, skate by in these one-score games because we have a gimmick. We spend money in ways that nobody else in the NFL does. While there may be some truth to that, there's no rule against zagging. When everyone's zigging to try to be like Mahomes and the Chiefs, you can always zag. And instead of fighting fire with fire, you can fight fire with water and try to build a defense to stop that juggernaut offense instead of trying to build a juggernaut offense of your own who can keep up in those boat races.